Hey everyone, welcome to my channel or welcome back. I'm Anya the Aviator and I'm so excited to share with you the 7 things that I wish I knew before becoming a pilot. If you haven't seen my other videos, I hope that you visit them. This is only my 3rd one on this channel and I'm starting to get used to it, I guess. Timestamps and resources will be in the caption below. Let's dive in. Number 1, the financial commitment. A lot of us know how expensive it is to become a pilot, and if you don't know, you will find out in a second. One of the things that I said I would do different in one of my videos was that I would look up more scholarships and then apply to more of them. I do have resources here for you for scholarships, but I do want to talk about the cost of just becoming an airline pilot in general. I'm mainly going to speak about being an airline pilot because that's where I am. But if you want to know about the different licenses and what you need and what's required and what you can do with each license, that's one thing that you can definitely Google. Is just the different types of licenses that I'm about to mention. Before becoming an airline pilot, you need quite a few licenses. There's a private pilot's license, instrument pilot's license, commercial pilot's license. Most likely you'll need a multi-engine license, especially if you want to fly jets, because I don't know many single engine jets. And then you have to become an airline transport pilot. A lot of people also, to get their hours, they will become flight instructors. So you might be paying for a flight instructor certificate, whether that's a CFI or a CFII, which teaches instrument, or an MEI that teaches multi-engine training to the multi-engine students. With all of those, you are looking at about $70,000 to $100,000 or more. There is a minimum cost, I would say, because if you did it all perfectly, it's going to cost a certain amount out of flight school, but we're all human. We don't do everything all perfectly. I didn't do everything perfectly. If you look up each license that I just mentioned, they have a minimum hour requirement. So when I say do things perfectly, that means that you hit exactly those hours and you're good to go. And the FAA says, yes, you finish your check ride, you're good to fly. I don't know anyone that has hit every single minimum hour in their journey. So with that being said, every hour costs money. It costs a certain amount for the airplane, for the gas, and for the instructor. That's why I said there's a minimum amount that could possibly be there, but everybody's journey costs something different, right? It all depends on you. It depends on your level of retention. It depends on your level of performance and just making sure that you understand the best possible. I want to give you some really key advice that I think helps a lot of people. Don't start flying until you have the time and have at least a good few $1,000s. The reason I say that is because if you start flying, you try to pay an hour at a time and already it's a financial struggle for you, well, either not having the time or not having the money to fly is going to prevent you from flying. The more consistent you are, allows for you to retain more information. This means that you have less hours than you might have needed if you only flew once a week versus if you fly 3 times a week, or at least on the schedule 3 times a week, then you're good to go. Even with that in mind, I always advise people to be on the schedule at least 3 times a week. The reason I say that is because there are other things that happen. There are mechanicals, there's weather, there are things that make your flights that you thought you were going to have be canceled. And it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with the instructor. That's just how it is. Again, this is information I did not know when I first started this journey. Make sure you have the time available. I know that this is a little bit harder if you're an adult and you have other responsibilities such as work and whatever else, but this is the way you're going to save the most amount of money, is to have the time available to do it. And then also having at least a little nest egg to start you out so you also don't have to stop. This career, like I said, could be a minimum of like $70,000 or $60,000 if you did everything perfect, and it could extend up into the 100,000s area. Don't focus on the big number. Big number is scary. I get it. We didn't have $100,000 for me to just go fly, but we figured out how to get $1,000. We figured out how to get $2,000. We figured out how to get $5,000 and $10,000. Every dollar counts. You can focus on just a smaller number, then it can help you move forward. Before you even start this though, go take an intro flight. I should have said that first. That's usually our first point of advice. And so if this is your first time even thinking about being an airline pilot, go take an introductory flight. There are, I think Groupon still does introductory flights at some flight schools that are pretty cheap. There's also any area, your local flight school. Google a small airport in your area. There is probably a flight school there and they do introductory flights. That can sometimes be just $100 $5 for 30 minutes, but you can see what you were getting yourself into. Pay attention to what the pilot is doing, what the instructor is doing, and see if this is something that intrigues you. One thing that I will say first is I fell in love with aviation. You can have all the money in the world, you can have all the time in the world, but this journey will test you. It will absolutely test you in ways that you wouldn't have found possible. If you don't love flying, if you don't love the job or what you're doing, it's going to be that much harder for you to finish or even stay resilient in the process. Now, let's talk about how to pay for trainings. There are several different ways. Of course, if you have the income, good on you. Go fly. What are you waiting for? Just go fly. Go right now. Go fly an airplane. If you are not, financially fortunate in that way, there are options for loans. So I didn't have that option as a kid because I was a kid. I didn't have a credit score or anything of that nature, but there are loans that do exist. So if you are an adult and you have that credit score, you have that available to you, by all means, get a loan if that's what you feel like you need to do. I will say that at schools and stuff of that nature, they offer loans for student aid if you are doing it through a college. Colleges also have flight training. There's a lot more that exists now than it did when I started. So definitely, again, Google that information and look up schools in your area. There's some financial aid in that. That's actually what I did when I went to college. I did take out a loan. I did get a couple scholarships, but that's pretty much what I did once I got to college. When I was 15, like I said, we were nickel and diming, and I was getting any job that I could to try and pay for flight training. So that was my personal journey. Now, of course, with loans come interest. So just keep that in mind and figure out what works for you. I just knew that at some point in my career, I'd be able to afford to pay it back. And if I was paying student loans back anyway, I felt like that was the right decision for me at the time. Now let's talk about people giving you money. That's scholarships, internships, or things of that nature. I know that there's these programs that exist now with airlines that give you money, but those are not the only options. You have organizations that give scholarships. You have government grants that are out there for flight training, but you also just have regular scholarships. Just because there's a general scholarship doesn't mean that you can't use that scholarship for flight training. So any kind of educational scholarship that you can find, that can also be an opportunity for you to receive a scholarship for flight training. Again, any money coming in that someone's going to give you, absolutely apply for it, do your best effort, and get that information right away. I'm going to list off some of the ones that I'm aware of and I know, and I'll link them down below. One thing that I do love about today's world and time, don't forget there's AI, right? You can also ask ChatGPT or whatever you prefer to use what scholarships and where you can apply to scholarships for aviation or just general scholarships that maybe have the experience that you're looking for. And a lot of times that can lead you to information as well. But there are several different organizations and there's a lot of money out there. So just feel free to just apply away. It doesn't hurt to apply. You spend a little bit of time to hopefully get a lot of money and then end up becoming everything that you wanted when it comes to being a pilot. I think it's worth it. Also remember that these organizations that exist and they have specific demographics, make sure you look up what fits for your specific demographic, because at the end of the day, those organizations exist to help not only expose people to aviation and to this world, because it's not something that certain demographics were exposed to in the past, but also provide them opportunities to finish this goal, right? To start and finish this goal. So if you fit a certain demographic or you want to search, Google, ChatGPT it, I definitely recommend that you do that, because that's also where you're probably going to get your most support on how to finish this journey. In my last video, I did mention that I did an internship. So those exist as well. There's not as many of them. I will tell you right now, I did not have a good experience during my internship. Did it do the job? Absolutely. But unfortunately, they limited the amount of training that I could have when I would be assigned to fly. I wouldn't be allowed to fly, but a couple of the other interns were. It required me to take it up on my own hands to make sure that I stayed current, that I had that repetition. They told me that there was free sim training. Well, they messed up there because your girl was there every morning, every night. And I would go after work. That means that sometimes I was there for about 14, 15, 16 hours a day just so that I could practice. Program that should have taken me a year to do, I did it in 3 months. It's also another thing to have a certain level of determination, right? And sometimes I feel like that specific experience that I had was to push me. There's a lot of things that if I would have took that extra 9 months, I may not be here as a captain at my current airline. I think everything definitely happens for a reason, maybe for the greater good, however you want to put it, but it was not a good experience. Hopefully things have changed now. It's been almost, let's say, 10 years since I had that. The place was American Flyers, and I'm willing to say that now because hey, I'm here. And that was my reality and that was my story. So maybe it's different now. I did look up their website. I did not see an internship on there right now that's available for you to apply, but I would continue to keep my eye out, and hey, maybe you'll have a different experience than I did. I just know mine and a few others that I've met in the past did not have a great experience. Just being candid and honest. Another opportunity that you might have is with the military. I always say, if you are not going to the military to serve your country, and that is not something that was always on your mind, then please, please do not do yourself the injustice of just going to the military to try and fly and get your flight training paid for. In my experience and people that I have spoken to, the ones that have chosen to do that have been disappointed in one way or the other, whether it was they ended up not being able to be a pilot, or they weren't on the plane that they thought they were going to be on, or they don't enjoy the work outside of when they're able to fly, or they're constantly focused on everybody else that's an airline pilot instead of where they currently are and enjoying being a military pilot. One point in time, I really did. It just wasn't an opportunity that was going to be for me at the time. And I think that it all worked out how it was supposed to. But that's the advice that I give other people. All the military people that may be watching this, give everybody advice below in the comments on what your experience is, or what they should be looking for, or what they can expect joining the military, and what do you think the reason that they should join would be? Because I didn't go, so I don't feel like I can give the most adequate answer of what to expect. But one thing I will say, you will pay either way, whether it's your time or it's money. Financial commitment was a big one. All right, so that was the longest one because the financial commitment, or the commitment in general to being a pilot, is extensive. There's a lot of layers there. Let's talk about number 2. It's the importance of networking. I know we all have online communities and we tend to talk and really feel like we're engaging with the other person on the other side of the computer or the phone. It is so important to get out in the community and network. There are a lot of events out here in the world that promote aviation. There are plenty of opportunities for you to meet up and meet other pilots, whether it's air shows, conventions, airport hangouts, just all kinds of things that's out here that exist. And you can meet so many interesting people and the great part is we all have a different story. You might be like, that's an airline pilot and that's an airline pilot. Well, guess what? We got completely 2 different stories. And there are people that I started training with on the same exact day, had the same solo. We are both airline pilots, but our journey from here was completely different. You will be surprised on who you relate to, on information that they have, or vice versa. So just get out there and definitely network. You're going to also be able to find the best opportunities for mentorships through the people that you meet. I will say that a lot of the organizations, there are some that have specific mentoring available. They provide opportunities to network. And that's where the people are going to support you because of who you are, not necessarily because they just feel like they need more pilots at a certain airline. They want to support you because there's something about you that stuck out. There's something about you that they want to curate and help and push you to the next level. And having that kind of personal commitment and time from someone is absolutely valuable. I'm going to give you a couple tips too, because I've mentored several people, actually a lot of people in this journey. I don't even say it ends, because even when you become an airline pilot, there are still things that happen. You're constantly learning. You're constantly experiencing. I am always still in contact with them. I will say one of the things that I love the most is when someone specifically asks me to be their mentor. Just because there's a switch that goes off in my brain that's like, oh, I just liked and enjoyed talking to you. Now I feel like I have a personal responsibility that I signed up for to be your mentor. Now, I have been asked to be people's mentor in the last, I want to say 2 or 3 years a lot. I personally decided not to accept any new mentees, probably will again, but as things develop, I'm trying to figure out more ways to give to the communities, to give to people, but still have time for myself. Hence YouTube. With that being said, there are other things I just want to caution you on when it comes to being a mentor-mentee relationship. And this is all from personal experience. Remember that your mentor is a person that has a life, that has other roles outside of just being your mentor. So please, please, please give all of us grace and then understand what your expectations are and think about it as if, is this realistic? Is this something that once I become a mentor that I can expect from somebody else? It's like some people have families, they have kids, they are also flying, and flying is very demanding. When we're at work, we are on, right? And there's also other people pulling at us outside of those work hours. Just remember and give grace to the people that are your mentors. Don't take things so personally if, for instance, they don't get back to you when you think they should, or there was a conversation that you didn't think was given enough time. I say to be thankful for the time that someone is giving to you, because at the end of the day, to be candid, they don't have to. If they are just giving you 5 minutes, guess what? Soak up that 5 minutes. That's my personal advice from being a mentee to becoming a mentor. My mentors might be in the comments in a minute, but I never really bombarded them. I would contact them a few times in a year. I would sometimes just update them or call them with questions. If something happened, I would give them a call here and there. And that brings me to asking for resume reviews, application reviews, or any letters of recommendations. Most scholarships do ask for letters of recommendations. Also advise you not to ask a complete stranger, especially on social media, for a letter of recommendation. That person unfortunately does not know you. Even if it comes from a teacher that does know you or a person at your current job that does know you versus someone in aviation, that's better than someone that doesn't know you at all, mainly because you don't know if that person is actually going to say yes. And then you also want something to sound very personal to who you are when you submit that scholarship application. That's also coming from someone that used to review scholarship applications. So I'm putting you on game. Anyways, so when it comes to these requests from mentors, just make sure you give them enough time, right? Application review, I need at least a month, at least for sure. Reviewing resumes or doing a letter of recommendation, at minimum 2 weeks is my personal take on it. Maybe that's a conversation that you have as well with your mentor. But just remember, treat the person that is your mentor and really think, is this the way, or is this realistic? If I was in their shoes, knowing what I have going on, is this a realistic expectation for this person? And treat them in that way and just constantly give grace. We are all trying our best. We're all trying to figure it out. And you may not be that person's only mentee. And if you don't feel like you're comfortable or happy or confident with that particular mentor, get you more mentors. That's the great part. They're endless. Keep networking. Keep finding people. But you can be a sponge from a value of information and a value of wisdom. I don't have one mentor. I have 7 at least that helped me through my journey, and many more that gave me advice. Just get as much information as you possibly can. It can never hurt. Number 3. The reality of work-life balance. One of the things that I like to think of now that I'm a pilot is just having work-life harmony because balance is very, very finicky, I'll say. Probably my 4 best tools that I use are Apple Notes, Apple Reminders, texting myself. That's huge. I pin the text bubble to the top for my messages, and I use Calendar, specifically Google Calendar. It does link to my Apple Calendar and also my work calendar. So I use my calendar for everything, whether it's for an appointment I have to do, or if it's dinner with friends, or if it's just to call someone to check in on them, because sometimes I forget to do that. I'll see a phone call and it's like, oh, I got to take off in 30 minutes. So I'm setting up the aircraft. I'm doing all these other things and I might not get back to that call that day. I think the biggest thing is staying organized with your connections with other people. So there's people connections, there's making sure you're focused at work, but then there's also taking care of home, right? My place, for example, I purchased it a year and a half ago. I don't know if you can tell, but the wallpaper just got put up on this back wall and I'm still trying to hang this mirror timer and a couple other items in this place. And I'm finally getting to the last parts of really getting this place done. But my kitchen took a long time. My guest bathroom took a long time. This guest room looks kind of crazy still because, again, we don't have a lot of time at home overall. Now, we have a lot of days off. Don't get me wrong. We do have a lot of days off, but the amount of things you have to get done within those days that you're in town sometimes can feel like it's like this big tunnel or circle. And because we have a lot of days off, a lot of us like to go travel. We don't want to necessarily be in the airport, but we like going to destinations. Probably the hardest things that I personally have to harmonize is taking care of home, making my appointments, and keeping track of connecting with friends and family in my calendar. Other than that, those are my main 3 goals and objectives. Everything else comes later. And that's possibly why you'll see there might be a frequency where I have a lot of YouTube videos come out and a lot of posting on social media. And then there's some times where I won't have barely anything at all because I'm focusing more on those top 3 things. That's my work-life harmony. That's how I figure it out the best that I can. Number 4, being a pilot, the learning never stops. Never stops. You learn something new every single day, or at least every single trip. For me, I like to say that you're always a student, making sure that you just retain whatever information. You never know who you're going to learn that thing from. Besides being a sponge, we also have required training. As you're going through this whole journey from 0 hours to airline pilot, not only are you being tested throughout your training every single time you're flying, your instructor is making sure that you learn what you were supposed to learn, and then you get to move on to that next part. To me, that's still kind of a test, right? You're focusing on making sure that you retain that information, you're performing well, you're able to move forward. The ultimate goal of each license is the check ride, the mighty check ride. That check ride makes sure that you either can have your license, and then once you become an airline pilot, make sure that you stay qualified to continue to operate within your license. My last airline, it was every year. I believe the max amount of time you can go without a check is 18 months. I'll have to double check that. But at my current airline, it's every 9 months, and it just rotates on the information that we have. There's a lot of information on that, on what type of check rides and things of that nature that we have to go through. But the main thing is we are constantly checked by different people, by different examiners, by our instructors. Some schools have stage checks. If you're doing the 141 program, they have checks inside of your training and until you are ready for a check ride, constantly checked by the FAA, by an examiner, and these are all different people. This is one thing irritates me the most. Like, if you ever wanted to know what irritates Anya the Aviator, this is one thing that irritates me. Now, granted, everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own thoughts, whether they're educated thoughts or not. We realize how smart or how people will show themselves on media and comments or whatever every single day. But what bothers me the most is how uneducated about pilot training you have to be to think that, oh, I'm in my seat or anybody else is in their seat because they are a certain demographic. I went through all this training for years. Let me see, I have pilot, instrument, commercial, multi, CFI, CFII, 4 different type ratings. I'm an airline pilot. I've been a captain 4 times at different airlines. I've flown several different airplanes. I've had checks for years, all by different people, all giving me different check rides, whether they knew, liked, or whatever. You don't think that at some point I probably encountered a few other people that think just like you, but I still was able to pass my check ride? It is almost comical to me that people can think that this career, I'm not saying any other career is any other way, but this specific career, like how uneducated in aviation and training do you have to be to think that, oh, they're an airline pilot because of XYZ? No. This is not a career you can discredit people's merit. It's just not. Y'all go fly, y'all do your thing, and again, keep smiling because you're going to be a pilot one way or another. Just make sure you pass those check rides and make sure you learn what you need to learn because this job is serious. It can be dangerous, but it's also so fun. Number 5. Physical and mental health is essential. There are a lot of things that I do on a daily just to make sure that I start my morning right. I can focus on what it is to do at hand. I know we talked about having harmony within your life. This career makes you reflect on how important, how big things are. Things that used to be big or seem so detrimental in life or whatnot, it just doesn't feel that way to me anymore. Maybe that's just growing up. But there are a lot of things that just doesn't feel as big or as important. When you look at the grand scheme of things, I've had to build a mental fortitude. I think some of the best pilots have is emotional maturity. Just making sure they're connected not only to themselves, but other people, but also you have to switch that on and off. For example, I might have emotional maturity to understand what's happening with my family or what's going on at home. But when I go to work, I have to make sure that that's not going to affect me at work. And one of the great things is being an airline pilot, you're going through something, they don't require you to work. But if you choose to be upset every day, you will be upset every day. It's just the reality of it. Even with a lot of other things, I just don't have the capacity to be upset by this, or I don't have the capacity to necessarily have a bad day. I choose to have a good day. That's another thing I love about being a captain. I choose to be happy when I go into work. So honestly, I don't feel like I have an option. Everybody is looking at me to set the tone, right? And if I go into work like, hey, what's up? You want to fly? No one really wants to be engaged with that person. If I show up and I'm not welcoming or I just turn around, now, could you show up that way? Sure, but that's not the kind of pilot I want to be. Mental health and taking care of yourself is very, very crucial. Also making sure that the people you surround yourself with understand that, and not saying that their problems or situations don't matter. That's never, ever the case. They absolutely do. Also understanding that there are certain things that when you are on the road or you are working, that you may not have the best capacity to absorb what's going on with them, and for them to give you grace in that moment. It requires the people around you to also be emotionally mature is what I'm trying to say right now. So being careful about who you surround yourself with and then selecting those people as you go. I don't do drama. I don't do it. If there is drama coming, I'm like, no, that's probably one of the easiest ways for me to sit here and reflect. You bring a lot of drama into my life. Probably not going to deal with this, because you have to protect your mental space. I think it's important for everyone, but it's super important in our jobs. Make sure that you do that. And then another way that I try to protect my mental space, or I try to take care of myself, is being healthy and being safe with my body. Unfortunately, I realized that the hard way. I fractured my wrist. I don't know if y'all can see that. And yeah, so I had a fractured wrist. I was four-wheeling in Morocco. Whole nother story. It flew off the side of a mountain. But thankfully, all that got hurt was my wrist. I realized how important my body was in this job. Now, you think the importance of your body, but specifically to this job, can't really do what's required of yourself when you have a cast on your arm from getting surgery, right? I had to sit out from work for almost 6 months, go through rehabilitation and all of that good stuff. And it was hard. It was especially hard because I was at a regional airline at the time. I wanted to continue to get my hours and get my requirements to be at an airline, a major airline, but I couldn't do that because I had to sit at home and heal. Being very careful with yourself like this. It's got to work. Now, if you have, for some reason, any other kind of physical issue that you think is going to prevent you from being a pilot, there is another avenue that you can go for that. There is a thing called SOTA. It's a statement of, I have to look it up. I'll put it somewhere here on the screen, but it's called a SOTA, and it allows you to demonstrate that you are able to still pilot an aircraft with whatever limitations that don't normally exist to other pilots. However, when you hurt yourself, that does not apply. Being careful with your body, but also being healthy. The level of exhaustion that can come from constantly being on the road, constantly thinking, every single time you're in a plane, you're thinking about something. But that's also the part that's so fun to me. Maybe I'm a little insane. I don't know. Is it fun to you, other pilots? Like, you're just constantly thinking, you're problem solving, you're figuring out things, you're thinking ahead, you're trying to figure out like, what needs to be done here? What can I do better here? How can I move forward here? How can I get this place from point A to point B as safe as possible, as smooth as possible? It's a constant thinking process. With that, you are sometimes exhausting yourself and you don't realize it. The best way to stay energized is to be physically fit, right? I am not the the poster child at all for being physically fit or completely healthy, but I am very mindful of being healthy and keeping my body in a physical state that I can continue to exert and do things that I need to do at work, and I'm not limited by my energy or by my clarity. I suggest that you all get prepared for that and do the same. If you haven't started yet, just start thinking about, how can I manage my time? How can I manage my day? Other thing is, our schedules are very unpredictable on what times we're going to fly and what times we're going to do things. Also figuring out how to be flexible when those things happen, or how to be flexible in your life in general to help clear your mind, keep your mental health up, and then also keep your physical health up. Understanding seniority. When I first started flying, people were like, seniority is everything. Make sure you get where you're supposed to go, because seniority is everything. And I'm just like, well, I get this word, but I don't know what that means. So when they're saying seniority is everything, it's about the time that you get hired at whatever airline you're trying to be at. If I got hired in 2015, I am more senior than the person that got hired in 2016, and so on. The length or the longevity that you have been at each airline, that does not transfer to your next. So a lot of people, as you're going through this pilot journey, they might say, like, I'm trying to get seniority, so I'm trying to finish this as soon as possible. Make sure that you always pay attention to where you currently are and just do your best at where you're at, and then the rest will come. The more you try to force it or try and do it as fast as possible and things like that, you end up making more mistakes. I forgot what the saying was. I think it's slow is smooth and smooth is fast, or fast is smooth, and I don't remember, but it's something on those lines, where if you take your time, you're probably going to move a lot faster than you actually trying to rush it, and then you end up putting yourself in a situation where you end up wasting more time because you made mistakes here or there. Well, with that being said, seniority still controls a lot. It controls the amount that you're paid. It controls your schedule that you keep on, for instance, what days you can have on and off. It also controls what type of trips that you get as well. One of the things that I love about my aircraft is that we go to a lot of island destinations, but I'm able to hold some of those island destinations because of my seniority. And at the airlines, every year that you go more senior is another year that you get pay increase, which is great as well. One of the things I will say too is, when you're a junior pilot, it is difficult to sometimes manage people's expectations on how available that you are, because a lot of times you don't hold off weekends, you don't hold off holidays, and you might not hold off someone's trip, birthday celebration, whatever else. Understanding that the people around you may not understand that, give them grace as well as ask them to give you grace, because starting new, it's new for everybody. It's new for your family. It's new for you. It's just a new experience in general. So you want to make sure that you understand that for yourself, but you also understand for the people that surrounding you, because they might not get it. With that being said, you may need to get more creative, right? So it may look a little bit different on, okay, I wasn't able to do Christmas this day with my kids, but hey, we have early Christmas, and getting them excited about early Christmas, and then maybe still leaving something at the house when you leave, and it's like, this is still a Christmas present from dad or mom or whatever you celebrate. I'm not trying to be super specific or anything, but just saying that things may look a little bit different. One thing that my mom did for me that I absolutely loved and enjoyed, I lived in Hawaii for a little bit. If you saw my first video, you would know that was part of my journey. I wasn't able to be here for Christmas. I had started at another airline, and so my seniority was very junior at the time. She sent me 10 days of Christmas. So every single day I was able to open up a little box that said, this is for I can't remember what date it was, but I assume it started on the 15th or 16th, whatever 10 days is from the 25th. Do not judge me. Anyways, I got to pick a box up all the time, and I was able to open them. And she kept this going, and I was on a trip itself. And so I would just bring the boxes for those dates with me, because I wasn't able to go to Christmas. Sometimes it's about getting creative with yourself, or maybe someone's getting creative on how to be there for you. Remember that seniority does control a lot, but don't rush getting there. And there are ways to figure it out. Number 7, building resilience for mistakes and self-doubt. This is the final thing, because I feel like there are a lot of people that may feel like they're experiencing this all alone. One of the things about pilots, or just people in general, we want to seem like we have it together. We want to seem like we know what we're doing. We want to seem like everything is perfect, hunky-dory. I'm brand new to aviation, but I know it all. Like, what? At the end of the day, I have had this conversation with so many people. They'll call me and say like, hey, I don't know if I can do this. I remember when I first got into my first jet, I looked at that poster and I was like, how? That was probably the biggest moment of self-doubt that I ever had, to be completely honest. And I was just like, how am I going to learn this? I looked at all those buttons, all those switches, but guess what I did? And I took it one moment at a time. I called my friend. They helped me figure it out. We just banded together. And it's so important to have a community, whether it's people that you're going through training with, your mentors, like I told you, just having that community, the people you can lean on, the people that you can trust to say like, hey, I am feeling this way. Have you ever felt this way? How did you get through it? What are we going to do? And this is also why I'm making this video, to allow the people that don't necessarily have that mentor yet, like I could be it virtually. If you're going through this right now, just understand you're not alone. There is not one pilot, no matter how much they try to tell you, there is not one pilot that has not gone through a moment of self-doubt or had to get through a mistake or a problem and had to build resilience after that situation happened. Or even experience maybe an emergency situation and it might have terrified them for a little bit to get back in that airplane and keep going. There are so many things, there are so many factors that happen until you finish your license. And that's for every license, not just being an airline pilot. So just remember that you are not alone. Those other people sitting in those seats, a lot of them are most likely experiencing the same feelings that you are. But the biggest thing is most people are not willing to admit it. I'm probably one of the first people that will tell you and admit it to you because I don't have anything to prove to anybody else but myself. And what does it help for me to say, hey, I'm not going to tell anybody I'm having a problem. I want to try and figure it all out myself. How is that helping me? How is that me developing or becoming better? I'm just making it harder on me when I could be learning so much more if I was just open and honest. That is such a key thing I feel like we need to get back to if it ever really did exist. I mean, I'm not sure, but that is a key thing that I think that most people need to really come together and hold tight on. When someone's open and honest with you, also be open and honest with them. All it's going to do is help them be better. It might help get something off your shoulders and it might help you be better as well. Go out there, do your thing. Know that when doubt comes, you are not alone. You can get through it. All of us has been there and you can make it happen. With that being said, those are the top 7 things I wish that I knew before becoming a pilot. And then once I knew them, how to hopefully help you get through each of these topics as well. I hope these insights and information helps you get excited for the journey and the path ahead, gives you more tools to be able to use and get you overall propelled for the journey forward. If you want more advice or learn about my pilot journey, I have a video on that and it's linked below. If you would like to see a 4-day trip with me, I also have a video on that. And if you like my shirt, it is my merch or my earrings. I don't know if you can see those, but it is part of my merch store. There's lots of items and we are doing a holiday launch very soon. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining me. See ya.